Hey you guys, welcome back to How the Light Gets In. It's nice to see you. Since our last video dropped, we've actually got 5 new subscribers, so hello new friends. Hope you like this one too, because I'm not going to talk about Joaquin Phoenix for 45 minutes, so here's hoping it goes well. So today we are going to talk about the problem with problems. And to do that, I'm going to tell you a story first. So in March of 2013, and mind you, I'm only telling the date this occurred so that you know that several years have passed and that I have grown as a person. But anyway, back then I was moving out of I'm gonna go shitbox apartment. It was not great. And I was trying to get it cleaned up and I was trying to mop and I had a Swiffer Wet-Jet and it wouldn't work. Like, for all of my attempts and all of the energy that I poured into this stupid Swiffer Wet-Jet, it wouldn't work. And instead of doing like the mature adult thing, where I take a minute and I calm down and I look at the directions and I deal with the problem, I chucked it off the balcony of my 3rd-story apartment because I was full of rage and just wanted to clean my floor. The story gets even better when you find out that the reason it didn't work is because I hadn't put any batteries in it and I didn't know that that was part of the system. Not a good day. So the reason that that whole thing got so blown out of proportion for me is because I didn't take a minute. That's it. I got so obsessed with this problem I had in front of me that I wanted to solve it immediately, and when I couldn't do that, I lost my shit and threw things out windows and scared my neighbor's dog because I was not in a great place at that time in my life. So one of the big problems with problems is just that we feel the need to do something with them the moment that they arise. And unless your job involves disarming explosives, no problem is really that immediate. You can take your time with it. So a lot of what we're going to talk about today comes from DBT, which stands for Dialectical Behavioral Therapy. It was developed by Marsha Linehan and designed to help people who had been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. In spite of its very specific general use, it is actually just a very useful tool. If you want to learn how to be more mindful and better manage your discomfort and distress, I highly recommend that you look around in your area and find a DBT class or a DBT therapist, because it is real good stuff laid out in a very, very helpful way. A while back, we talked about the ability to sit with discomfort and deal with things not going the way that you wanted them to. And when problems arise, as I've said, like, there is a desire to deal with the problem in the moment as it comes up. And sometimes you can do that. Like, you know, if the problem is that you forgot to feed the dog today, well, then just feed the damn dog. But if the problem is that you're not really sure how to proceed with a relationship that's beginning to show some toxicity, you don't have to solve that one today. Sit on it for a little bit, think it through. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be comfortable. But if you draw on those distress tolerance things that you use, you'll be able to sit in that discomfort and deal with the difficulty and figure out how to proceed. Just give yourself permission to be thoughtful and to be patient with your process here. And give yourself permission to occasionally, compartmentalize that problem and put it aside. Now, you do have to take it back out of the compartment at some point, but you're allowed to table it for a little bit. When you're trying to deal with a big problem, it gets overwhelming easily and it feels like this has to be done now. I have nowhere to go with it. And so you wind up acting irrationally. You do something out of your impatience and out of your desire to see this problem not be a problem anymore. Again, refer back to our first story here, because again, I threw a Swiffer Wet-Jet off a 3rd-story balcony because I couldn't get it to work and didn't have the patience to just let that problem exist for a few minutes. When it comes to problem solving, one thing you need to be mindful of is the different kind of objectives that you can have in any given situation. So the first one is your objective goal, which is just like the thing that you want to get done. The second one is relationship goals. So in a lot of situations, you're trying to either protect or alter or disrupt a relationship in your life. And then the last kind is your self-respect goals, which is your desire to feel like a person with dignity and agency. Now, all 3 of those kinds of goals are important and necessary and deserve some attention. The problem is that sometimes we get so distracted by one that we sell out the other two and create more problems for ourselves. So for example, like let's pretend that my mother has asked me to mail a letter for her. And I like my mom and I want to be nice to her, so I'm going to go to the post office and mail this letter for her. Except when I get to the post office, the line is like crazy long, like out the door long. I'm going to be waiting like 35 minutes to mail this letter. Quick side note, I realize that you don't generally actually have to wait in a line to mail a letter, but just like stick with me here, I'm going to get to a point. Anyway, so you look at this big long line out the door of the post office and you think to yourself, well, I don't have time for this. And you just leave. So what you've done there is you've sold out your objective goal, which is to mail your letter, and you've sold out your relationship goal because you're going to disappoint your mom by not completing this task, all because you don't want to be disrespected by the length of this line. And there's all kinds of different situations where all of these three things have to be weighed and prioritized and figured out. The point is that it's important to be aware of which one of those is most important to you in the moment and which ones you're willing to let go a little bit. I think a lot of people particularly struggle to let go of their self-respect goals. Their desire to feel important and respected gets in the way of getting things done. If you go back a few weeks and look at the video I made about the stories we tell, you'll hear me talk about my mad road rage issues at one point in my life. And so much of my road rage issues had to do with my inability to put my self-respect goals to the side for a moment. When people cut me off in traffic, it felt like they were saying that I didn't matter, and I needed to address that immediately. Now, both in hindsight and because I understand this now, I can tell you that that goal was not more important than everything else that was going on in my life that day. And choosing to sell out my efficacy in every other area just to protect my self-respect in that moment was super not worth it and created a lot more problems for me in the long run. So just be mindful about what you're trying to achieve when you have a problem that's facing you. Are you trying to develop more self-respect? Are you trying to deal with relationship problems? Or do you just have a task that needs to be done? If it's a combination of the three, you're going to have to pick a winner and put the bulk of your effort into achieving that one. But it's possible to do that and table some other things and be an effective person. So when it comes to problems, there's really only 4 things you can do with them, no matter what the problem may be, no matter how big or small. Your choices are either to 1, solve it, B, change the way you feel about it, by which I mean, like, you know, if it seems like a problem, maybe you can like look at your perspective and your feelings and figure out a way to see it as less of a problem. 3, I just realized I counted 1B, 3. Killing it today, guys. Anyway, number 3, you can try and accept it, or your 4th option is to stay miserable. There are some problems that we literally cannot solve, at least not in the short term and maybe not even in the long term. Like, trying to think of examples that aren't crazy personal because I wasn't here for some intense vulnerability today. Okay, so let's pretend that your relationship with your father is garbage, but you're very close to your mother. It's unlikely you're going to solve this problem with your dad for any reason. If he's unwilling to come to the table and discuss the problems and make some changes, there's no unilateral action that you can take that's going to make that relationship better. That's a perpetual problem you're going to deal with for the long term. So you can't solve it, and it's unlikely that you're going to figure out a way to feel differently about it because your dad's behavior is still going to drive you crazy and you're still going to want that to be better. So your choices become one of 2 options. You can accept that this is the way that things are, or you can continually try to fight against the reality and just make yourself miserable. So in the framework of DBT, what we're talking about is what's called radical acceptance. And it's not an easy thing to do, but it is an important thing to do, especially when you run up against these perpetual problems that aren't solvable, or when you're just dealing with difficult circumstances that will eventually resolve, but are going to take some time to do that. The thing is that, you know, pain is pain, and pain is inevitable. No one of us is going to go through our lives without having some stuff comes up that No single one of us is going to go through our entire lives without some stuff coming up. Pain is going to happen. What's avoidable is suffering. And all that suffering is pain without the benefit of acceptance. If you can accept the thing that's causing you pain and just allow it to be what it is, then you've moved past suffering. That sounds a lot easier than it is, and I know that, but it is possible to accept something and not have yourself languish in that place of suffering for long. So there's 3 basic parts to radical acceptance. The first one is accepting that it is what it is. I have a lot of clients who really super duper hate it when I say that because they don't think that phrase means anything. And they're not wrong, like it doesn't really, it's just the first step to the acceptance part because things are what they are. Like there's no way we're going to explain it differently or look at it differently sometimes. It's going to make it feel like less than what it is. So that's step 1, is just letting reality be what it is. Step 2 is that everything has a cause. Not always a good cause, mind you. A while back, a client asked me, like, I just don't understand why I have the kind of mother who treats me like this. And the way that they asked that question implied that they strongly expected an answer from me. There is no answer to that question. That client has the mother that they have because that's the mother that they have. There is a cause, it's just not an interesting one or one that helps the problem. The things that are happening to you because of what's happened. That's the clearest definition and explanation that you're going to get. And while that makes it a little bit harder to feel comfortable with the problem that you're accepting, it's a crucial step to accepting it. Because things are what they are, and they happen because they happen. And then the final piece is knowing that life is worth living, even if you have to overcome a great deal of pain in the process. No matter how much pain you might be in, whether that's mental or physical suffering, you have a choice about how much space that pain takes up in your life. And I'm not trying to suggest that like having chronic pain issues or having chronic depression or anxiety or anything else doesn't make it very hard to make meaning in your life. I am 100% willing to admit that. The bulk of my professional career is around talking about that issue. But just because things hurt doesn't mean that you can't make moments of meaning. And it doesn't mean that life can't still have purpose. It means you're going to struggle a little bit more than the average person. It means you're going to feel a little bit more pain than the average person. But it's still a goal worth reaching towards. So to be clear, none of this is me saying that you just should ignore all your problems. Because that's not a great solution either. What's important is that you recognize the difference between the problems that you can solidly deal with in the moment and the problems that you can sit with for a little while. And I would wager that the bulk of the things that you identify as problems are things that can be sat with for a little while. You don't have to solve everything in the moment. What helps is if you're clear on the goals you're trying to achieve and if you're willing to accept the things that have no recourse other than to be accepted. This was a fun talk, right? So, big takeaways, guys. Problems are going to happen. They are coming for you. Not you specifically because you've done something wrong or have some sort of like secret problem microchip that you use to like hone in on your position, but because you are human and you live in the world. And a certain amount of difficulty and problems are inevitable. They're unavoidable, and that's okay. You're allowed to have some problems from time to time. What matters is that you are careful and diligent in how you make your choices moving forward, and that you're patient and able to deal with the distress of not solving your problems all at once. All of those things are going to help you deal with the problems that cannot be solved right now in this moment. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm glad that you were here. If you like what you saw, then like it and subscribe to my channel, and then maybe share this video with all of your friends and family and neighbors because it would be nice if they saw it also. If you have questions or thoughts or comments, or you just want to tell me how wrong I am about stuff, you can leave it below in the comments, or you can reach out to me on Twitter at HTLGI. vids, or you can email me, and that's over there, so I don't have to say the whole thing. You can also follow me on Instagram. I periodically remember that exists. It's emma.cott. I'll see you guys next time.